Over the next 3 days, we're going to be bringing you a mini series on stress. And each day you'll be receiving actionable steps and things to ponder about stress. Starting off today with mental emotional stress and how that may be impacting your fertility. Today we are going to ponder the question that we hear a lot in the fertility community, that women are having babies in war-torn countries all the time, and there's no evidence that stress impacts the ability to conceive. We are going to dig into that comment and give you our thoughts on that. So excited for you to listen to day number 1 of our mini series on stress. I regularly speak with 5 to 10 couples per week who are struggling to have their baby. And although we want to help everyone, we only have 4 spots available per month to work with us. I would like to invite you and your partner to a Supercharge Your Fertility Discovery Call. And this call is for you if you meet at least one of these criteria. You've been trying to get pregnant for at least 2 years. You've been through at least one failed IUI or IVF. This calls for action takers. If you're not ready and you wait, the risk is you'll need to wait 2 to 3 months for a spot to open up. If you're seriously considering working with us, go to FabFertile, FabFertile, and click on Book a Free Call. That's FabFertile, FabFertile, and click on Book a Free Call. Then you'll be all booked in and ready to spend 30 minutes to give you the action plan to getting pregnant naturally. There's a lot of information about which supplements are right for fertility. And like most couples I speak with, you are probably taking a lot of supplements. But are these supplements optimizing or harming your fertility? That's why we recommend professional grade supplements without harmful dyes, fillers, or top allergens so that you can prepare your body in the best way for pregnancy. And as you may know, we take a functional approach to fertility. And while supplements are included in your customized protocols, which are based on testing, they are only part of the equation because there's no pill you can take that will out-supplement the basics, such as poor diet, dysregulated sleep, either moving too much or not enough, and not dealing with chronic stress. So we do recommend basic supplements for both men and women. And these are essential starters that you need to have right now to optimize your preconception health. And I'm excited to offer you a special discount at our FabFertile store. You'll receive 15% discount on our professional grade supplements. So simply go to FabFertile store. That's FabFertileStore.com to access the basic supplements so that you can prepare your body for pregnancy success without wasting time and money on supplements that may not be right for you. Go to FabFertile Store, that's FabFertileStore.com, and save 15% on your order. Hey there, thanks so much for listening to the Get Pregnant Naturally podcast. And I've got a favor to ask you. If you are enjoying learning about the functional approach to fertility, consider going to iTunes and rating and reviewing the podcast. This is how it helps the show reach more people that are struggling with infertility, knowing that there's another approach that really can get to the bottom of why it's not working in the first place. So all you need to do is, if you're on the app or the desktop, just go in and consider leaving a 5-star rating and leave a review. And there is step-by-step instructions in the show notes showing you exactly how to do that. So if you can just take a few minutes, just take the few minutes right now. You can pause this recording, come back, leave the review. It would really mean the world to me and help others that are on the fertility journey as well. Take care. I didn't need to go to donor eggs. Obviously, I don't regret it. I have beautiful children. I could have done things differently, restored. I was still cycling back in my 20s. I could have looked at my health, the environmental toxins, the stress I was under.
Many women are being told their eggs are too old. That's often merely an assumption that's not based on actual evidence. The reason being that there is no direct test of egg quality. You can't test egg quality.
It's the man who's got a food sensitivity or he has a zinc deficiency.
Like, there can be a root cause to these symptoms that are, quote unquote, period problems, that the doctor will pass you a pill without any question of why.
And some part of you knows that if you can reframe your journey from not want to struggle, or if it is struggle, learn how to embrace the struggle. Learn how to embrace it.
Most conditions in the child occur during the 9 months of development. It's the genetic switches are turned on or turned off, and they're pre-programmed. So you are in such a powerful, amazing position to do amazing things for your kids.
Why is IVF the first step? Because we believe it should be the last step. Welcome to Get Pregnant Naturally, where functional medicine and natural fertility solutions will help you get pregnant and have your baby. Hey everyone, I'm Sarah Clark, founder of FabFertile and your host. I believe the functional approach is the first step for anyone struggling with infertility, and my aim is to help you get pregnant naturally. Today I'm welcoming Justine Altman back to the podcast, and we're digging into the question, does stress cause infertility? On this episode, it's part of our mini-series, day number 1 of our series on stress. And today you're going to learn, does stress actually cause infertility? We are breaking down the common myths, why telling someone to relax or blaming yourself for stress is not helpful, and how to address mental emotional stress so that you can have pregnancy success. Definitely check out episode number 6 for a functional medicine 101 talk, plus a look at some of the tools we use to help couples conceive. And Justine is part of my team here at FabFertile. She's an integral part of our couples coaching program, which uses functional lab testing, diet and lifestyle changes to dramatically improve conception. So if you're struggling with infertility, your body is desperately trying to tell you something, and focusing on your health will either help you get pregnant naturally, or if you do need to go to the fertility clinic, it will improve your chances of success. And thanks so much for listening. I'm so thankful that you're here. Make sure you hit subscribe. And if you know someone else who is on the fertility journey, please share this podcast with them. Yeah. So for today's part of our series on stress, I wanted to talk about the comment that we hear a lot, and you may have already heard this yourself, is, but women have babies in war-torn countries all the time, and there's no evidence that stress impacts the ability to conceive. And this is really, I think it's a common comment that you may hear, and it's made not to have women or couples put blame on themselves for any stress that, our environment, our mental emotional stress, and not blame yourself. So this is not having you blame yourself. That's not what we're discussing here, but it's more to say, because we believe there's different types of stressors, including mental emotional stress, physical stressors that we're going to go into later in the series that do impact your fertility. And our whole thing is to educate you and empower you to know there's things you can do, because I think with this statement, it's trying not to blame you, but I just think it's because we don't really know the impact of, first of all, the child in a war-torn country with low birth rates, and then what other types of diseases do these diseases or illnesses do these women have? Like everyone listening to this podcast, and myself and Justine, we struggle with infertility, and other people have other disease things they're struggling with. So there's always that tipping point. Diet and lifestyle can then trigger something that you're predisposed to, and it's not to mean that's your destiny. What's your take, Justine?
Yeah. And when I think about this comment, it's like, we don't want you to be blaming yourself for any kind of stress and how stress may have an impact on fertility. So blaming is not the thing, but it's like, but we want you to know, we want you to understand, and that we see this every day, that stress of every kind, right? Chemical stress and physical stress and mental emotional stress absolutely has an impact on our overall health, which absolutely has an impact on fertility. So we certainly don't want you to be blaming yourself that you've done something wrong. But that's why we're here, right? Is that, we're aiming to teach, to help educate about what are the things that we can do to reduce the stress on the body so that we can improve our fertility. Because we know flat out, we absolutely have the ability to improve our chances at conceiving if we manage to reduce stress in all the ways on the body.
Absolutely. And then the other comment we hear a lot is that, well, wait a minute, that woman over there who's a drug addict who, has treated her body, horribly. Well, wait a minute, she can have multiple children. I'm here eating organic, grass-fed, gluten-free, dairy-free, managing my stress, and it's not working. And so for her, it's the same analogy where it hasn't impacted her fertility, but what we don't know, again, the health of her children, which I think people know, obviously, someone that's on drugs or substance abuse, fetal alcohol syndrome, and other, babies being born addicted to drugs. We know that piece, but the fact of the matter is the comment is like, well, wait a minute, she can still get pregnant, but we don't know the other health issues that she's dealing with. So for, again, for you and I, it's fertility. For her, that was not the genetic, the lifestyle for her that didn't impact her fertility. What's your take on that one?
Yeah, so stress manifests itself differently in every person. And so for some people, it's like they experience a lot of physical pain. For other people, it's infertility, and we see low thyroid, and we see weight gain, and we see, migraines and headaches, or we see digestive issues. And so it's different for everyone. But ultimately, the root problem is the same. It's stress. And, stress defined really broadly: mental stress, physical stress, chemical stress. And ultimately, we know that stress has the ability to affect fertility. And, in my case, and in Sarah's case, and in Brandy's case, right? Like, we all had issues related to fertility that had nothing to do with structure, right? There was nothing structurally wrong with us. We had intact ovaries and uteruses, and everything there was good, but infertility was relatively unexplained. Or, Sarah, I know in your case it was diminished ovarian reserve, but again, it's like, that's unexplained. Why do we have the diminished ovarian reserve, right? And so ultimately, there were solutions for us. And in my case specifically, I had my first baby with the aid of some fertility drugs, and that was a miserable pregnancy. I was like, it was a bad pregnancy. I was very, very uncomfortable. I was in a lot of discomfort the whole time. And then when my daughter was born, she was healthy. So the body is super brilliant, and it does its best to give all the resources to the baby that the baby needs. But I was left with nothing. Like, my resources were at zero. And it took me a couple of years to recover, to even get the strength back. And, even just like holding her, carrying her around was exhausting. And then, fast forward to a handful of years later, and I managed to conceive naturally with my second baby. And that pregnancy was a walk in the park, like lifting weights in the gym up until the day before he was born. And so it really was entirely different how healthy and robust he was. He was much larger than my first baby, so it's not like my daughter was unhealthy, but my son was a healthier baby, and I was so much healthier, so back in the gym a couple of months later, back to pre-pregnancy weight, my energy never tanked. I felt good. I didn't go through the baby blues. So all those things, it made so much of a difference. And that's because I managed to really, really reduce stressors on my body in the time between when I had my first baby and when I had my second baby.
Yeah. So for me, diminished ovarian reserve, but basically, premature ovarian insufficiency or failure for me. And then, having both my kids, and then years later, discovering all these food sensitivities and gut infections and chronic stress being, and I would have said I wasn't stressed when I was going through this, because I just, kind of a get things done kind of person. But looking back, I know that I was. And we see a lot of people actually with, they're like, wait a minute, it was easy for me to get pregnant the first time. And many times we see that they've had an autoimmune disease, and they may be able to get pregnant the first time. And then the second time, so secondary infertility, all of a sudden now they're struggling. And as, Justine was talking about there, with the resources going to the baby, and then the mother is left depleted afterwards. And with an autoimmune disease, obviously we've done a lot of episodes on that, being able to dig deeper. And then it was an autoimmune disease, which typically when I ask what happened around that time, is either a move, a death in the family, schooling, like a lot of stress, can then be the tipping point for an autoimmune. And then having a child, obviously, on the body is a huge stressor as well.
Yeah, not only mental, emotional, but such a huge physical demand, right? Like, I've heard it likened to running a marathon every day for the first trimester of a pregnancy, right? So just the amount of resources it takes for the body to grow a baby is just huge. And then to carry the baby, right? All the extra weight carrying the baby, especially in the later months of pregnancy. So it's just so much work. And again, brilliantly, the body prioritizes the baby. The baby draws everything they need. And ultimately, we see thyroid dysfunction, we see thyroid autoimmunity and other forms of autoimmunity all the time after a first pregnancy, right? Because it zaps everything. And now the body's sort of left going, okay, we have very few resources to work with, and we've got to make a decision about where to direct those resources in the body. And the body's just deciding not to give as much to the reproductive system or to some of the other systems that don't matter for your survival right this moment.
Yeah. And you also may have heard that there's no conclusive evidence that stress causes infertility, but we all know that trying to conceive is stressful. So when we address stress, then pregnancy rates increase. And really the pioneer on mind-body fertility is Alice Domar. So she's a Harvard researcher, and she's run mind-body fertility groups for over 20 years, and basically having people in a group environment doing anything from meditation to fertility yoga to reframing their thoughts to cognitive behavioral therapy to muscle relaxation and a whole host of other mind-body therapies. So 55% of women in her group went on to get pregnant within 6 months. And then within 2 years, 95% become a mom somehow. Like, she's talking about that when we reduce depression and anxiety, pregnancy rates increase. And also stressed women are more likely to have sex less often, more likely to drink or smoke, which decreases the odds. So it's like the chicken or the egg there. And again, it's the contradictory information around stress actually being the cause of infertility. They're likening obviously an infertility diagnosis to a cancer diagnosis. So infertility diagnosis in itself is very stressful. What's your take on some of that, Justine?
Yeah, it's just like when we have major stressors, like you said, Sarah, it's a really good example about the big sort of major events that happen in our lives that cause a lot of stress, right? So a big move or a death in the family or a loved one that gets diagnosed with cancer or something along those lines, that's such an incredible amount of stress on the body. Just as much as any other type of stress, right? And we sort of play it off like, well, those are just the things that happen and just something that we need to get through. But ultimately, it's a trauma, right? So it's a trauma to the body, just like a physical trauma would be. And we absolutely take a heavy hit, right? When that's happening. And so it's a matter of sort of, we can't prevent those things from happening. Many of them are outside of our control. But it's about making sure that we're sort of working through it, recovering from it in whatever way is right for you, right? So whether that's, some kind of therapy or, self-care therapy, whatever kind of therapy works for you, but essentially to sort of work through those traumas in order to heal from a mental, emotional standpoint so that the stress on the body can reduce and the body can sort of get out of this stress mode and sort of back into this sort of calm, rest and digest, ready to nurture and make a baby phase.
And there are a lot. So if you look up fertility and sterility, so they've done a lot of research in there and on that site all regarding fertility. Even just putting in the keyword stress, you can find 800 hits like in the last 5 years. And I don't know if it's necessarily 800 individual studies that link to stress, but in the last 5 years, there's there's different findings on it where sometimes the study is just saying it's not conclusive. So is it the cause or is it part of the story? Obviously we're working with couples with, very complex diagnoses such as low AMH and high FSH and POI, POF, diminished ovarian reserve. And, we see themes of there is mental emotional stress either from the fertility diagnosis or there was mental emotional stress going on for years before. And typically some of the things that we're seeing that could be stressors. Again, it is not about blame. It's getting honest about the stressors and, asking for help and support. One of the first ones we see as a theme is overworking. So working more than 50 hours a week, really just pushing yourself. We work typically with, type A busy professionals now with not as much travel going on, but still you can be on one long Zoom call for hours and hours all day long, be very sedentary. So that overworking piece, anything you want to say there, Justine?
Yeah, so it's hard, right? I know Sarah and I are both hard workers too. So we're preaching to ourselves on this one. But ultimately, I know we get ourselves into a position where we feel like we need to work. And sometimes we actually do need to work, right? The job actually demands that of us. And other times it's sort of this internal pressure. But ultimately, it's really important that we're taking care of ourselves, right? And so I know I say this a lot, but it's always got to be, we have to be paying attention to our diet and our sleep and making it a priority and our exercise and reducing stress in general, sort of from every direction. And it's really hard to do all those things at the level we need to really get everything humming along in the body and to really support good fertility, if we're working more than 50 hours, because we just plain old don't have enough hours in the day to get all the work hours in, plus get enough sleep, plus do all those other things that we should be doing, right? So whether that's, meditation or some other kind of sort of mentally supportive behavior, or things like massage and acupuncture and any other kind of treatment that really sort of helps us be our best. It's really hard to fit that in if we're overworking.
I say this a lot of times when I'm coaching someone, I'm like, oh, Sarah, you need to hear that too. So I try to walk the talk, but there's by no means any kind of perfection going on, but it is to be able to look if your job is, typically stressful and taxing, like how can you go in and see, and maybe sometimes it's having a conversation about what you're going through. If that doesn't feel comfortable for you, you don't need to do that. But a lot of times employers can do something to help alleviate the pressure on you. Because many times, we haven't even asked and we just think we have to do all these hours and be on every call and, every Zoom call we have to attend. There's typically some wiggle room within your current position. And then if that doesn't work, sometimes you do have to consider that, that might not be the right fit for you. Many people are typically, sometimes people could be staying at a job that because they really wanted to leave, but they wanted to be pregnant and therefore they get stuck there longer than what feels, right for them. Digging into that piece is essential if that is something that you're dealing with. And then again, we talked about the type A piece of that impatience and the frustration, the pushing, and really, everything you've done in life as work before this, and now doing that same. And I do believe that the fertility clinics kind of feed into this because we're told that we're too old, that we're told that, donor eggs are our only option, that, our egg health is diminishing as we speak, and we had better rush to the clinic now and start doing all the procedures. And it just puts us into this panic mode. And as a type A person, if someone's, I did it. Someone told me I better go right to donor eggs. I didn't even get a second opinion, look at any of the other health issues going on. And I went right to the clinic. And, my wake up call came years later when my health took a nosedive. So it'll eventually, come to you. I was fortunate enough to have both my kids with donor eggs, but both of their health, food sensitivities and gut infections and things like that for them as well, mood imbalance. But the thing that with that type A person, with how the fertility industry in itself, the business of fertility somehow can then perpetuate that, like just make that impatience just really like a lot.
We're always go, go, go. We're always feeling the strain, feeling the stress. And we really just have to, we've got to teach ourselves how to calm down. One of the things that I tell people often is like, we need to teach your body that it's safe. That you're safe, that you're in a safe place, that your circumstances are safe, that, even if you lost your job, even if this round of IVF doesn't work, even if any of those things, like what's really the worst case scenario? And is it that bad? And will you recover? And ultimately the answer is yes for all of those things, right? So if we lose our job today, does that seem like a bad day? Yeah. But tomorrow you'll go, okay, well, let's regroup. Let's brainstorm. How are we going to figure this out? How are we going to move on? And sometimes things just have a way of working out. So ultimately it's about finding a way to relax, whatever that means for you. Again, the things that come to mind are the meditation or the EFT, the tapping, or doing therapy, or doing yoga, or doing a yoga retreat, or doing a full weekend meditation retreat where there's no speaking, no cell phones, no electronics, right? Mm-hmm. Something to just sort of really allow your heart rate to settle back in the way that it's supposed to, and your body to just sort of know that you're in a safe place and it doesn't have to be on high alert constantly.
Another big one, I think comparison in general is in all aspects of life, especially for fertility, as then you see the person that's, treats their body poorly and is, substance abuse and drug or alcohol abuse and getting pregnant. And they're like, well, then it sets this trigger up for you. And then, into the comparison side of things, or, looking at social media and everyone posting all their baby pictures or their pregnancy photos, just feeling the overwhelming feeling is feeling left behind while everyone else, moves on with their life and, deal in those triggers. So, it's obviously to be able to deal with those hard feelings, but we recommend to delete social media for 1 week. You can do it for 1 week and just notice how you feel. Was there maybe more time for self-care? Were you not as triggered as much because you close it off for a week? Just to see how that goes. And then sometimes you can go a little bit longer because it's sort of putting boundaries up for yourself. So you're not exposed to that same thing that you're like gets you fired up every time and kind of gets you in that fight or flight. And it makes sense, right? To be able to, when you're seeing those things, even though you can be happy for that person, you're sad for yourself. And obviously as we, you get support on this and work through the trauma associated with this diagnosis, eventually when you see a baby or a pregnant belly, you can send them love and know that will be you. But in the beginning, that might not be a bridge that you can kind of get to start with. Yeah. So getting honest about your triggers. And then the whole part of this is we're stuck up in this, fight or flight. How do we get ourselves into the rest and digest, into that parasympathetic state, which Justine was talking about is it a meditation retreat? Is it just, doing some meditation, like committing to doing that daily or even if you're like, I can't meditate, do you just doing some slow movement with breath, or maybe it's journaling, or maybe it's just, doing something for yourself that makes you feel good and, whatever. And maybe it's just more intimacy and it's not about baby making, love making. A lot of times our relationship is, taking a hit because it's always about baby making. And so getting back with your relationship and connecting there with your partner can really help to get you back into that parasympathetic state. Anything there for you, Justine, you wanted to say?
Yeah, I concur on everything. The more that you can do to get your body back into this calm state, all of the practices, right? So we can suggest tons of things, but it's really about what works for you, right? And so for some people, breath work is really transformative. And for other people, meditation is really transformative. And the tapping is really incredible for some people. And others, it's going to be journaling, right? And so it's basically like, here's the big menu of things that you can do that help you sort of bring yourself back into that parasympathetic state. And it's about finding which one resonates with you. So if you're anything like me, I have zero interest in meditation. I do it here and there because I know that I should, but it's something that's that continues to be, despite having practiced it for years, it continues to be uncomfortable for me. However, the tapping works beautifully for me, and so does journaling, and so do a handful of other things. So it's really about sort of finding the one that feels right for you.
Yeah, and I really like the meditation. I like yoga, so yin or hatha, so slow yoga. And for me, actually walking, like getting my butt outside, even, here I am in Canada and she's cold right now. And I went outside just a minute ago with the scarf up to my eyeballs, but the sunlight's coming in and, I just looked at nature. We actually have a little pond behind us. So I get to walk around this pond. And, for me being in nature, it doesn't matter what, 365 days a year, I walk the dog, out we go. So those kind of pieces. And so it doesn't need to be you sitting on a mountaintop, being quiet for, 2 days straight. It can just be you walking outside and, noticing the beauty of nature. Well, any final thoughts there on stress and the cause of infertility, Justine?
Yeah, it's this philosophy and in practice, we know it to be true. The basis behind holistic functional nutrition, right, is that everything in the body is connected to everything else. And so your mental, emotional state of being is absolutely connected to your fertility, as is everything else, right? And so if you're struggling with any other symptoms, right? So skin issues or thyroid issues or weight challenges or digestive challenges or anything, it's an indication that there's some dysfunction going on, right? And that those things, everything is affecting everything else, right? So if you've got some wonky little tumor in your little pinky toe, it could be, related to the same kind of thing that's perhaps causing some fertility challenges. And so those are clues that your body's giving you that there's some dysfunction going on somewhere. And mental, emotional plays a gigantic role in it. So the more we can take care of ourselves from every direction, reduce stress from every direction, the better our fertility chances are going to be always.
Great. Awesome. Great. Thank you. So I wanted to tell you a little bit more about our FabFertile method. So we have access to functional lab testing. We ship the lab testing worldwide. We have food sensitivity testing as part of our method, using blood. We look at stool testing, looking at the DNA of your stool. We do hormone testing, so looking at your hormones using urine. We're doing hair tissue mineral analysis, looking at the status of your minerals and heavy metal exposure, and then blood chemistry review, not to diagnose, but to educate, looking at your blood chemistry using functional reference ranges, which are they're just tighter reference ranges that flags disease or illness earlier. Again, we are not diagnosing, we are educating. We also include coaching to help you and your partner fast track your success, to help you implement these targeted diet and lifestyle changes that we would be giving you based on the testing. So at the end of the program, you'll either be happily pregnant, or if you do need to go to the fertility clinic, you'll dramatically improve your success because you have optimized your health for both you and your partner. And we specialize in tough cases like low AMH, high FSH, premature ovarian insufficiency or failure, and diminished ovarian reserve. Addressing the stressors on the body is key for pregnancy success, and it's looking at the whole body, and we're digging deeper. And so what are those missed healing opportunities? So there's no downside to focusing on your health. You'll either get pregnant naturally or improve your success with IVF with your own eggs. So if you're ready to take a targeted, customized, functional approach to your fertility, just book your call by going to FabFertile, FabFertile. Click on book a free call. This call is for you and your partner. Space is very limited. We have 4 spots available each month to work with you. So that's FabFertile, FabFertile, and click on book a free call. I regularly speak with 5 to 10 couples per week who are struggling to have their baby. And although we want to help everyone, we only have 4 spots available per month to work with us. I would like to invite you and your partner to a Supercharge Your Fertility Discovery Call. And this call is for you if you meet at least one of these criteria. You've been trying to get pregnant for at least 2 years. You've been through at least one failed IUI or IVF. This calls for action takers. If you're not ready and you wait, the risk is you'll need to wait 2 to 3 months for a spot to open up. If you're seriously considering working with us, go to FabFertile, FabFertile, and click on Book a Free Call. That's FabFertile, FabFertile, and click on Book a Free Call. Then you'll be all booked in and ready to spend 30 minutes to give you the action plan to getting pregnant naturally. You may be taking supplements that instead of optimizing your fertility, may be harming it. That's why we recommend professional-grade supplements without harmful dyes, fillers, or top allergens. Simply go to FabFertile Store, that's FabFertileStore.com, to receive a 15% discount on our basic supplement recommendations for preconception health. That's FabFertileStore.com. The Get Pregnant Naturally podcast, including show notes and links, provides information with respect to healthy living, nutrition, lab testing, and is intended for informational purposes only. The information provided is not a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment, nor is it to be construed as such. We cannot guarantee that the information provided on the Get Pregnant Naturally podcast reflects the most up-to-date medical research. Information is provided without representation or warranties of any kind. Please consult a qualified physician for medical advice and always seek the advice of a qualified healthcare provider with any questions you may have regarding your health and nutrition program.